Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, relatives of a jailed Ugandan lawmaker say that he's been badly beaten whilst in detention. The arrest of Robert Kyagulanyi sparked 2 days of protest this week. The armies apologised for beating up a journalist during the crackdown. Also, as Muslims across the continent celebrate Eid al-Adha, our team heads to Ivory Coast to speak to some of those pulling out all the stops as they prepare for the festival. And we head to Kenya to take a look at its booming avocado export industry, which is showing no signs of going off. Farmers expect booming growth in trade for the fruit as its popularity, both at home and abroad, continues to go from strength to strength. But first, Uganda's denied reports by the lawyer of a detained MP that he's been beaten so badly that he can no longer stand. Robert Kyagulanyi was one of 5 lawmakers critical of President Yoweri Museveni who were arrested earlier this month. His treatment triggered days of protests in Kampala this week. The army responded harshly to rallies and on Tuesday apologised for the violent treatment of a journalist covering the marches. Nicolas Chamat tells us more.
This footage of a Reuters journalist with his hands in the air being beaten by soldiers sparked outrage in Uganda. The army issued a rare apology on Tuesday for the soldiers' conduct. The events took place during a protest on Monday over the arrest of prominent lawmaker Bobi Wine. His lawyers and his supporters say he was beaten up after his arrest last week.
They say we are taking orders from above? From who? They are the ones who have damaged Bobi Wine beyond recognition.
In all, 5 lawmakers were arrested on August the 13th. They are accused of taking part in the stoning of a presidential convoy. On Monday, many of their supporters were arrested.
Police and sister security agencies will continue to work together to secure everyone and to give space to everyone to go about their businesses uninterrupted. Close to 45 people have been arrested.
Bobi Wine is 36. Before being elected as Member of Parliament last year, he was a famous musician. His songs, which slam President Yoweri Museveni, have made him popular with many young Ugandans. Museveni, who's 74, said reports that Wine had been beaten up were fake news. He has ruled Uganda for more than 3 decades, and last year Parliament removed a constitutional age limit that would have barred him from seeking re-election in 2021.
Well, for more on this, we're joined by Michael O'Hagan. He's in Kampala for us. Michael, what more do we know about the state Bobi Wine's supposed to be in, and why has his detention in particular seemed to spark such outrage?
Bobi Wine's condition just now is quite unclear. There are conflicting reports from the few people who have been able to see him. And they've really divided along partisan lines, with government supporters saying that he is improving, that he didn't want to appear in front of cameras because he wasn't well dressed, and his lawyers and family members and others saying that he's really in a very poor condition and needs urgent medical attention. This is different because Bobi Wine is seen by many Ugandans as their only authentic voice. Because of his past as a popular singer, and he continues with his singing career. He's got really strong street cred, and he's a very charismatic individual. He combines that now with a very respectable look. Gone are the days of a trendy hairstyle in our smart suits and respectability. He's a prominent family man. Also, his identity makes him very popular. He is popular throughout the country, but he's from the tribal group that's based in the capital, Kampala, and they see him as one of their own, and that this is an attack on one of their own.
So this isn't the first time that President Museveni's leadership has been challenged, but is there anything different about the nature of this particular incident of protests and pushback against his rule?
The main difference is time. President Museveni has been in charge of Uganda since 1986. He's now in his mid-70s, and Uganda is a very young country. It's a very youthful demographic. And every year that goes by, that discrepancy, that difference between an older generation who came to power in the mid-80s and a youthful population becomes more and more tense. And so that's different from before. This also takes place in the context of a constitutional change, which was passed last year, and the courts found legal this year, that removes age limits and paves a way for President Museveni to remain president for life. And that is more or less accepted now by Ugandans. And people are frustrated about that and worried about what will happen next. People can also organise differently. People can organise on social media and express their frustrations on social media, despite the fact that the President and Parliament imposed a tax on social media recently, something that many observers think is an attempt to stifle that discussion. And it also takes, these protests take place in the context of a general decline in governance. The economy is suffering, institutions of the state, whether in health or education or security sector, on a local level are in decline, and people feel that keenly, and that's different from before.
Thanks very much. Michael Hagan there for us in Kampala. In other news, the Congolese city of Beni's made treatment for Ebola free for the next 3 months. At least 55 people have died of the disease in North Kivu province in August alone. 5 of the newest victims were from the Mabalako Mangina. It's the epicenter of the outbreak in a village not far from Beni. Treatment in Mabalako Mangina and Oicha will also be free. The latest outbreak is the 10th in the country since 1976. That was when Ebola was first identified and named after a river in northern DR Congo. Muslims across the continent celebrated the Eid al-Adha festival on Tuesday. Many Islamic communities buy a goat or a sheep to serve up for a special meal as they come together to mark the day. These images are from believers in Nigeria. Meanwhile, our team in Ivory Coast headed out to speak to some of the believers there as they prepared for the event.
It's Eid al-Adha, the holiest celebration in the Muslim calendar, which means millions across the world will be celebrating the feast today, including here in West Africa, where the celebration is known as Tabaski. The tradition is for a family to share a sheep together as a symbol of sacrifice, or depending where they are, a camel or perhaps beef. Here in Ivory Coast, it's a public holiday, which means the streets were empty this morning as people attended mosque or were preparing for the celebration. So let's see how they do it Ivory Coast style. I'm here with Yo Hussein, who's going to be celebrating with his family. So first of all, how did you choose your particular sheep?
You have to choose a good ram, a ram with fine stature that you can roast after prayers. It's very important that it's a healthy ram.
And why is the festival important to you?
This festival is highly important to us because we're celebrating the fact that God allowed our prophet Ibrahim to burn a ram rather than sacrifice his own son. Here and for Muslims across the world, it's an important festival to mark rejoicing and prayer, sacrifice. It's a highly important festival.
While the feasting element of Eid al-Adha may be the same around the world, there is a little extra here in Ivory Coast. Something extra, an extra course perhaps for the children. Because here the tradition is for children to come to the supermarkets like this to spend a little bit of pocket money given to them for the occasion on sweets and ice cream. As you can see, they're wearing their best outfits, their new outfits for the occasion, and for many, it'll be the only time this year they come to a supermarket.
Frank Hershey there for us, getting stuck in at Eid al-Adha. Now, Kenya is the world's 6th largest producer of avocados. They're extremely popular with domestic consumers, but also account for around 7% of the country's total fruit export. Though some exports were temporarily banned earlier this year, the latest season has started off strongly, and growers are expecting to see production ripen quickly over the next few years.
With the demand for avocados growing in the West, Kenyan farmers are upping production of the coveted crop and reaping the benefits. In a country where smashed avocado on toast and avocado smoothies have not caught on, most of the nation's production, some 90% of it, is destined for export.
The demand is going high, especially for those countries which are allied and they matter more about their health. Considering the fact that avocados in Kenya are produced organically, meaning the level of chemicals is almost 0.001, and that's why you get the demand is too high.
On this farm in Thika, some 50 kilometers north of Nairobi, Simon is giving his avocado trees priority over fruits and vegetables. He began growing avocados 10 years ago and is still planting.
Can you see it is growing here?
Simon's 210 trees can produce 7 tons of avocados a year. It is a crop that requires little care but produces major benefits for farmers.
With the coffee, there is a lot of work to manage the coffee, but with the avocados, it is easier to have more money, less labor.
Last year, avocado exports grew by 15%. The state is now encouraging farmers to plant more, a move it hopes will help reduce unemployment.
We're also encouraging the youth who may not have any jobs or who say they have no jobs that these are opportunities for investment.
Now, Kenyan producers are eyeing the East as the next frontier for export, with the government in talks with China and South Korea, hoping to flood these new markets with the beloved green fruit.
And that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.